There was a man I knew named David, 52 years old, successful by every external measure. He owned 3 dental practices across the state, had a beautiful home in the hills, drove a car that turned heads. But I will never forget the afternoon he sat in my small study. This confident man, reduced to tears, his hand shaking as he told me that despite all his success, despite the money flowing through his accounts every month, he had just discovered he was 3 months away from bankruptcy. Not because he was not making money, he was making plenty, but because he had no idea where any of it was going. He had confused income with wealth, activity with wisdom, and now, at 52, with grown children and a reputation in his community, he was about to lose everything because he never learned the difference between gathering and guarding. I tell you this story because David's crisis is not unique. I have seen it dozens of times. Men who can build empires but cannot sustain them. Leaders who can attract fortune but cannot keep it in their hands. And it breaks my heart every single time because the principles that would have saved them are not complicated. They are not hidden. They have been written in our sacred texts for thousands of years, but nobody teaches them anymore. Fathers stopped passing them down. Communities stopped discussing them openly. And so, generation after generation of good men stumble into the same traps, fall into the same pits, and lose what they worked their whole lives to build. Today, I want to share with you the ancient laws that could have saved David, the same laws that saved me when I was younger and more foolish than I care to admit. These are not techniques. They are not strategies in the modern sense. They are eternal principles about the relationship between a human being and the resources entrusted to their care. And I warn you, some of what I say will make you uncomfortable. Some of it will challenge beliefs you have held for decades. But if you can hear it, truly hear it, it will transform not just your finances, but your entire relationship with provision, purpose, and legacy. Let me begin with the first principle, and this is the one that cost me the most in my younger years. There is a passage in our holy writings, in the 5th book given to us through Moses, where the people are warned before entering a land of abundance. The warning is specific. Do not say to yourself that your own power, your own cleverness, your own strength created this wealth. Remember instead that the ability to generate provision comes from beyond yourself. Now, most people read this as a call to gratitude, a reminder to be humble before the Creator. And yes, that is part of it. But there is a deeper business truth hidden in these words, a truth that took me 20 years of painful mistakes to understand. The ability to attract wealth and the ability to preserve wealth are 2 completely separate capacities. They come from different parts of the soul. They require different disciplines. And most critically, they are almost never found in the same person at the same level of mastery. When I was a young man, maybe 27 or 28 years old, I had a gift for seeing opportunities. I could walk into a room and within minutes I would spot the need, the gap, the possibility that everyone else missed. I was like a hunting dog on a scent. I closed deals that older, more experienced men said were impossible. I built partnerships that should not have worked, but did, because I had the energy, the vision, the raw hunger to make them real. By the time I was 35, I had built something substantial, multiple income streams, property, investments. People looked at me and saw success. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a man who had figured it out. But there was a problem I did not see. For every dollar I brought in the front door, $1.50 was leaking out the back. I was brilliant at the hunt, but terrible at the guarding. I could not say no to an exciting expansion, even when the numbers said, wait. I could not resist a partnership that fed my ego, even though my advisors warned me the terms were dangerous. I spent money on the appearance of success because I confused looking wealthy with being wealthy. And when the collapse came, and it came suddenly like a summer storm, I was left standing in the ruins, wondering how someone so smart at making money could be so stupid at keeping it. I remember sitting with my father in his kitchen. This was years ago, after I had lost almost everything. I could not look him in the eye. The shame was crushing. And he said something to me that I initially felt was cruel, but later understood was the greatest gift he could have given. He said, "Shimon, you thought you were a complete businessman, but you were only half. You were the hunter. You never became the guardian. And a hunter without a guardian always starves in the winter." In the old families, the ones who have maintained wealth across generations, they understood this split. The grandfather might have the vision, the deals, the expansion, but the grandmother controls the ledger. Not because women are better at math, that is nonsense, but because they recognized these are different skill sets, different temperaments, different callings. And you cannot build a lasting house with only one of them. I have spent time in the Diamond District in New York. Have you ever been there? It is like stepping into another era. Hasidic men in long coats, moving between shops on 47th Street, conducting transactions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars with a handshake and 2 words of blessing. And here is what most outsiders do not see. The man who cuts the deal, the one with the charisma and the relationships, he is almost never the same man who manages the money. That is, his brother, his cousin, his trusted partner of 30 years. They split the functions because they know that excellence in acquisition does not translate to excellence in stewardship. So, what does this mean for you practically? It means you need to stop lying to yourself about your weaknesses. You need to look honestly at your business, your household, finances, your resource management, and ask, am I a hunter or a guardian? And whichever one you are, you need to find someone who is the other and give them real authority, not a fake title, not advisory input that you ignore, real decision-making power over that domain. If you are the visionary, the deal maker, the one who can smell opportunity from miles away, then you need to find someone who is careful, methodical, skeptical of expansion, protective of reserves. And you need to let them say no to you. You need to structure your business so they can actually stop you from doing something stupid, even when you are convinced it is brilliant. Because I promise you, the deal that destroys you will feel like genius in the moment. And if you are the guardian type, the one who is naturally conservative, who sees risks before opportunities, who would rather protect what you have than gamble on what you might gain, then you need to partner with someone who has the hunger, the vision, the willingness to take calculated risks. Because safety alone does not build anything. It just slowly shrinks what you already have. This is the first law, and it is not optional. Every business, every household, every wealth-building endeavor needs both functions operating at full strength. The tragedy is that most people spend their entire lives trying to be both, failing at the one they were never designed for, and watching that failure cancel out all the success of their natural gift. David the dentist I told you about, he was a hunter, brilliant at growing practices, attracting patients, seeing opportunities for expansion. But he never built the guardian function. He kept trying to do it himself, telling himself he would get better at it, more disciplined, more careful. He never did. And by the time he came to me, he was 3 months from losing practices that had taken him 20 years to build. We had to bring in a financial operator, someone who took control of the numbers, the cash flow, the reserves. David hated it at first, hated giving up that control. But within 18 months, his businesses were stable, profitable, and growing sustainably for the first time in a decade. This brings me to the second principle, and this one is going to challenge you even more. The opportunity you are most excited about is almost certainly a trap. Let me say that again, because this principle has saved me more money than any other single piece of wisdom. The opportunity you are most excited about is almost certainly a trap. There is a concept in our legal tradition called one who is touched by the matter. It means that a judge cannot rule on a case where he has a personal stake in the outcome. His objectivity is compromised. His emotions cloud his judgment. And this is not just a legal principle. This is a business truth that will save your life if you let it penetrate. When you are emotionally invested in a deal, when your ego is attached, when the possibility excites you so much you cannot sleep at night, you are compromised. You are touched by the matter. And just like a judge who is biased cannot render a fair verdict, you cannot make a clear-headed decision about something that has hijacked your emotional state. I learned this the hardest way possible when I was 40 years old. There was a real estate opportunity, a commercial property in a growing area. The numbers looked good on paper, but more than that, I wanted it. I wanted to be the kind of man who owned commercial real estate. I wanted to tell people at gatherings that I had tenants, that I was collecting rent, that I was a landlord. My ego was screaming for this deal. And every warning sign, every red flag, every concern raised by people who knew better than me, I dismissed. I had an answer for everything. I was touched by the matter and I could not see straight. I bought that property. Within 8 months, the anchor tenant went bankrupt. Within a year, I was carrying a mortgage on an empty building in a market that had turned. It took me 3 years to sell it at a massive loss. And the whole time I knew, somewhere deep inside, I knew from the beginning it was wrong. But I was intoxicated by my own excitement, and intoxication makes you stupid. There is a story in our ancient texts about a man named Esau. He comes in from the field exhausted and hungry. His brother is cooking a stew. And in that moment, Esau is so consumed by his immediate desire that he trades his entire inheritance, his birthright, the leadership of nations, for a single bowl of soup. A bowl of soup. And for thousands of years, people have read that story and thought, how could anyone be so foolish? But I will tell you how. Because when you are in the grip of hunger, When desire has you by the throat, a bowl of soup looks like the most important thing in the world. The future becomes invisible. All you can see is the immediate satisfaction. This is how men destroy themselves, not through obvious stupidity, but through decisions made while in an altered state of consciousness called excitement. So here is what I instituted in my own life, and what I now requires of every person I counsel who is serious about building something lasting. 72 hours. Any major decision, any significant financial commitment, any partnership or expansion or investment that excites me, I force myself to wait 72 hours before saying yes. 3 full days. During those 3 days, I do several things. First, I run the numbers cold, not with optimism, not with projections based on best-case scenarios. I run them assuming things will be harder, slower, and more expensive than I hope. If the deal still makes sense under those assumptions, it might be real. Second, I talk to 3 people who have absolutely no stake in the outcome. Not my partners who will benefit, not my ego which wants to be proven right. People who do not care whether I do this deal or not. And I listen to their concerns without defending, without explaining, without justifying. Just listen. Third, I ask myself one brutal question. If I do this deal and it fails, will I be able to look my family in the eye and say, I made a responsible decision based on wisdom? Or will I have to admit, I let excitement overrule judgment? If after 72 hours, after cold analysis, after counsel, from the disinterested, after honest soul-searching, the opportunity still makes sense, then I proceed. But here is what I have discovered. About 60% of the deals that excited me most on day 1 fail this test by day 3. 60%, which means if I hadn't instituted this discipline, I would have made 6 terrible decisions for every 4 good ones. That is a recipe for ruin. Now let me be clear. I am not telling you to never take risks. Our tradition celebrates the risk-taker, the merchant who ventures into unknown territories, the entrepreneur who sees what others cannot. But there is a difference between a calculated risk and a fool's gamble. A calculated risk is made with clear eyes and sober judgment. A fool's gamble is made while drunk on possibility. The third principle might be the most painful to hear, but it is essential. You are not as valuable as you think you are, and the market is not wrong. You are. I need to be very direct here because this is where pride destroys more people than any other single factor. You have a number in your head for what your time is worth, what your product is worth, what your service is worth, and that number is almost certainly inflated. Not because you are not talented, not because you do not work hard, but because value is not determined by what you think you deserve. It is determined by what the world is willing to exchange for what you offer. There is a story about a man named Joseph. He was thrown into prison in a foreign land for a crime he did not commit. While there, he interpreted dreams for 2 servants of the king. He told them exactly what their futures held. And he was right. But did he demand payment? Did he announce his value? Did he set a price for his gift? No. He simply served. He delivered value without negotiating his worth. Later, when Pharaoh himself needed a dream, interpreted when the crisis was at the highest level, Joseph was remembered. and brought before the throne. And again, he did not name his price. He solved the problem. He showed Pharaoh not just what the dream meant, but how to prepare the entire nation for 7 years of famine. And Pharaoh, witnessing the magnitude of value delivered, made Joseph the second most powerful man in the most powerful nation on earth. Do you see the principle? Joseph did not set his value. His results set his value. The market determined what he was worth based on what he delivered, and the market made him a king. But most of us do the opposite. We decide what we should be worth based on our credentials, our experience, our education, our effort, and then we go to the market demanding that price. And when the market says no, when customers choose cheaper alternatives, when clients push back, when opportunities go to others, we get bitter. We say the market is stupid. We say people do not appreciate quality. We say the world is unfair. But the market is never wrong. The market is simply reporting reality. And if the reality is that people are not willing to pay what you are asking, you have exactly two choices. Improve what you deliver or accept what the market is telling you about your current level of value. I learned this in my late 30s. I had positioned myself as a consultant, an advisor. I had a rate in my head based on what I thought someone with my knowledge should earn. And I was getting rejected constantly, not because people did not like me, not because they did not think I was smart, but because the value I was actually delivering did not justify the price I was demanding. It took a mentor, an older man with more wisdom than I had pride, to sit me down and say, "Shimon, you are pricing yourself based on your self-image, not your results. Go deliver value for free to 3 people. Solve their hardest problems. Ask nothing in return. See what happens." I was offended. Free. I was too important to work for free. But I was also desperate enough to try anything. So I did it. I found 3 business owners who were struggling. I gave them 30 days each of my full attention. I helped them restructure operations, cut costs, increase revenue. I asked for nothing, just delivered value and moved on. Within 6 months, all 3 of them had referred me to others, but not at my old rate, at triple my old rate, because they had seen the actual result, the tangible transformation, and they knew people who would pay significantly more for that level of impact. I did not raise my prices. The market raised them for me. This is the way our people have always done business. You do not announce your value. You demonstrate it. And you let the results speak so loudly that others compete to work with you at whatever price you set. But this requires humility. It requires the willingness to accept that you might not be as far along as you thought, that your current level might need to be level 0, not level 10, that you might need to go back to basics, strip away the ego, and rebuild from authentic value creation rather than self-proclaimed worth. The 4th and final principle is the one that brings everything together, and this is the one that, when I finally understood it, everything else in my life and my business clicked into place. You have been building for yourself when you should have been building for your name. Let me explain what that means, because this is not about branding in the modern sense. This is not about logos or social media or marketing. Your name, in the deepest sense, is the reputation that will outlive you. It is what people say about you when you are not in the room, what they will say about you after you are gone. And, more importantly, it is the single most valuable asset you can ever create. There is a proverb from King Solomon. He says that a good name is more precious than fine oil, and the day of death is better than the day of birth. Now that sounds dark at first, morbid even, but Solomon is making an economic argument. On the day you are born, your name is worth nothing. It has no credit, no trust, no history. But on the day you die, if you have lived well, your name is the most valuable thing you possess. It opens doors. It creates opportunities. It blesses the next generation. When I was building my first businesses, I was building for myself. I wanted the income. I wanted the status. I wanted people to see me as successful. Every decision was filtered through what would benefit me most right now. And I made compromises, small ones at first, cutting corners, over-promising, delivering less than I said I would because I knew I could get away with it, choosing profit over integrity when I thought nobody would notice. And people noticed, not immediately, not obviously, but slowly, quietly, my name began to carry a scent. Nothing you could prove, just a whisper, a hesitation when people considered working with me, a lack of referrals, a sense that something was slightly off. When I lost everything, when the businesses collapsed, I assumed I would rebuild quickly. I had the skills, the knowledge, the connections. But what I discovered is that I had damaged something far more valuable than any business asset. I had damaged my name, and a damaged name is the most expensive thing in the world to repair. It took me 7 years. 7 years of saying no to shortcuts. 7 years of over-delivering even when it cost me margin. 7 years of keeping every single promise, no matter how small. 7 years of firing clients who were profitable but toxic because their association was damaging my reputation. 7 years of building trust, one interaction at a time, until finally my name meant something again. And now, decades later, I do almost no marketing. I take almost no meetings with new people. My business comes entirely from referrals. People I have never met send me opportunities because someone they trust vouched for my name. That is the power of a name properly built. So here is what I want you to do. Starting today, filter every business decision through a single question. Will this make my name more trusted or less trusted? That is it. One question. Should you take that shortcut, will it make your name more trusted or less? Should you hire that person who is cheap but unreliable? More trusted or less? Should you overpromise to close the deal? More trusted or less? When you filter everything through that lens, you start making choices that look stupid in the short term, but prove genius in the long term. You turn down money that would compromise your reputation. You deliver more than you promised, even when it eats your profit. You walk away from partnerships that would be lucrative, but would stain your name by association. And over years, your name becomes an asset that generates wealth on its own. People trust you with larger opportunities. They refer their most valuable relationships to you. They want to work with you because your name reduces their risk. In the Diamond District, there are deals worth millions, closed with 2 words and a handshake. No contracts, no lawyers, no escrow, just your name. And if your name is good, that is enough. But if your name is compromised, if you become known as someone who cannot be trusted, you are finished. Not just in that deal, in the entire industry. Your children will carry that mark. That is the weight of a name. That is why Solomon says, it is more precious than fine oil, because oil you can spend, a name you can compound across generations. Let me bring all 4 principles together so you can walk away with clarity. First, separate the functions of making and keeping wealth. Stop pretending you are excellent at both. Find someone who complements your weakness and give them real power. Second, institute a 72-hour waiting period on any decision that excites you. If it still makes sense after 3 days of cold analysis and disinterested counsel, proceed. Otherwise, walk away no matter how much it hurts. Third, stop arguing with the market about your value. Let your results set your price. Deliver extraordinary value without demanding recognition, and let the world compete for access to you. Fourth, build for your name, not for yourself. Filter every decision through whether it makes you more trusted or less trusted. Do that for 5 years, and your name will open doors no amount of money can buy. These are not motivational ideas. They are operational laws. They have governed Jewish business success for 3,000 years. They are written in Torah, refined in Talmud, tested in trading floors and merchant houses and diamond exchanges across centuries. They work, not because they are clever, because they are true, and truth does not expire. I did not learn them until I had lost everything. Until I was sitting broken in my father's kitchen, with nothing left but the willingness to hear what I had been too proud to receive before. You are hearing them now. You have not had to lose everything first. The question is whether you are wise enough to act on them before the collapse, or whether you will need the pain to open you. I cannot make that choice for you, but I can tell you this: the knowledge is yours now. What you do with it is between you and the future you are creating. Choose well. The next generation is watching whether you know it or not.